All right, guys, it's Brad with College SportsCast, and John and I are here to do the weekend wrap-up show for Week 9.
We executed.
I heard a fan offer free Dippin' Dots if I blew it.
Wanted to have some fun, execute.
I had bombs.
So stay as a team, execute, give 100%.
Dippin' Dots sound good.
All right, guys, welcome back. It's Brad with College Sportscast, and we are here to do Week 9 already for college football this year for our weekend wrap-up show. I've got John Roberts with me today. What's up, John?
What's happening?
So I've got a new laptop, guys. Hopefully things will run a little smoother than it has been the last little bit. So we'll see. Just to let everyone know that's going to be on with us today. Got something a little different here. But again, we are College Sportscast. We are presented by the Fanboys and featured on Let's Talk Sports, Sideline Sports. Also, the Real Fresh channel for this show on Sundays. Check them out. And I do stuff for Stadium Rant. And also, you can check us out on WSBN TV channel 30. All right, man. So what was your big take, I guess, from the games yesterday, John?
One, let's see. We had some teams, or we got some little bit more of a shaping up of the of what could be the final push for the playoffs coming up. UNC lost a second game. Washington remained unbeaten in the Pac-12, right? They don't have a loss in the Pac-12, right? Okay, that's
they're undefeated so far.
That's what I thought.
They struggled a little bit yesterday, but they did have a 10-point win.
Right.
Like that at the end.
But Utah got bumped by Oregon as being a number 2 team. So now Oregon is clearly in the driver's seat for the number 2 spot in the Pac-12.
Because Oregon State lost 2 last night.
That is correct. Oregon State lost to Arizona 27-24. We'll get into all those other scores in a minute, but
so Oregon is clearly in the number 2 spot in the Pac-12 now.
Right. Oregon is clearly the number 2, and it looks to me as well with Georgia made a statement without Brock Bowers. So if you thought that they were going to be a team that couldn't, may not be able to do it without Brock Bowers, they went out and proved that they can do it without him.
I mean, they pretty much manhandled Florida. Towards the end, I think they allowed, put some players in, allowed Florida to score a touchdown or 2 towards the end. But for the most part of the game, I mean, it wound up being 43-20, but Florida didn't really score 20 points against the best.
No, Georgia. The 2 touchdowns late in the game were late in the game as opposed to touchdowns early on, because it was pretty much whatever to 6 for the most part. So that's what you were that was pretty much what was going on in terms of the that game that day. Penn State seemed to struggle with Indiana for a little while.
Yeah, they did, and I was a little surprised. I don't know if that was a carryover from the Ohio State game or what the deal was, but yeah. Josh, glad to have you on, so appreciate you being with us today.
And Louisville absolutely took Duke to the woodshed.
Yeah, and that was without Riley Leonard, which
Leonard did play for a little bit.
Did he come in?
He played. He's got stats in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he played. He was 9 for 23 for 121 yards, and then I believe he also had 10 carries for 13 yards. So
Okay. Well, he definitely wasn't 100%.
and he didn't play the end. I mean, like there was at least a series or so where he did not play because the backup did go 3 for 5 for 30 yards. So I'm assuming maybe the very end of the game they went ahead and took him out
Yeah.
and allowed the backup to play.
Well, I didn't. I seen some stuff yesterday. I thought I seen where somebody had posted that he was going to be out, but maybe I guess he did play.
He played.
Yeah.
Yep. But I guess we do have the top 25, and the top 25 is out, and
Yep.
the 2 team has still got that I guess the black cloud of the scandal that is going on with the stealing of the signs in Michigan, and I think this is still a hilarious ordeal, but it is illegal what they did. So
Well, so yeah, we do have the new AP poll out today. If you want to get to that before we do the college football scoreboard, we can do that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
we can do that.
So to start with, Georgia, for the 20th straight week in a row, in the AP poll, is the number 1 team again, of course. And that's significant because the second place team has 21. So if they, remain number 1 next week, they will tie the second place ever streak. And that is the Miami teams, I believe. I can't remember. It's either the USC teams with Reggie Bush. One of them's 33 and one of them's 21. And I can't remember off the top of my head. I've said it 2 or 3 times on here the last couple of weeks. But anyway, they are number 1 still. Number 2 is Michigan still.
Yep.
Michigan was off this week. They had a bye week. Michigan did. So all their buzz this week was over this scandal that you're talking about. So, with Harbaugh and Michigan and investigations and, all this stuff, that's been their buzz this week.
Oh, yeah.
So number 3, I think, is still Ohio State. I'm trying to get my thing to come up, and it's not come up.
Number 3 is Ohio State. Number 4, you got it?
Go ahead, because I ain't got mine.
Number 4 is Florida State. They also did really well this weekend. Number 5 is Washington, and none of these were any movement here. Number 6, there was movement at number 6. Oregon jumped 2 spots from number 8 to number 6. Texas remained at number 7. Alabama jumped 1 spot from number 9 to number 8. Penn State jumped 1 spot from number 10 to number 9. Oklahoma fell to number 10 after the loss. Ole Miss is 11. Notre Dame 12. LSU on a bye week is 13. Mizzou also on a bye at 14. Louisville, after their big win, is 15. Oregon State dropped 5 spots after their loss to and dropped down to 16. Air Force is at 17.
Who's
Utah,
still undefeated, by the way? Air Force is.
That's correct. They are 8-0. Utah, after getting their second loss, dropped 5 spots to number 18. Tennessee is in the top 20 now at number 19. UCLA is at 20. Tulane is 21. Kansas stays where they were, did not move up or down after beating Oklahoma.
22?
Yeah, they stayed at 22, which I think that's kind of weird. But James Madison is now at 23, USC at 24, and we round out the top 25 with K-State.
So K-State moves back in.
I think that it shows no movement, so I say that they were number 25 last week.
Oh, really? They may have been.
So.
I was thinking K-State moved back in after their win yesterday.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. But so your top 10, I think, are the main main ones that's probably you're looking at right now for, college football spots. I would think there's a couple of other teams that still have an outside shot. Mizzou is one of them.
And LSU.
Yeah. Mizzou is one of them. They actually get Georgia this coming week.
That's correct.
In Athens. It's in Athens. We'll get to some of the other games, but I just, while we're talking about these, Mizzou definitely is another team that still has an outside shot. If they could knock off Georgia,
right.
So I'm not saying they will, guys, not at all. I'm just pointing out the facts that they have a shot is all I'm saying.
Right. I mean, look, technically Ole Miss has a shot, but that one's a little bit more of a outside shot because Alabama has to lose twice in order for them to even get into, like, say, the SEC championship. And I don't think that they get in without, like, being in the SEC championship game. But there is that glimmer of hope.
So Ken Muss is with us. He says he was at the cocktail party yesterday. He says that my Gators were a pretender and Georgia is a contender.
Well, the pros and cons of football here. There we go.
Yeah. Just had to throw that in there because Ken was with us and was talking about it. So, just so y'all know, I am paying attention to this game today. Will Levis has 4 touchdowns in his NFL debut right now going on, and I'm pretty excited to watch Levis. So I know we don't talk about this, but anyways, I had to throw that in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's from what I understand, I haven't turned on this game yet, but that is one where I've heard that he is balling out right now. So
he is. Levis is looking like exactly what I thought he would look like. And I said I thought last year he was going to be one of the top quarterbacks in this class 5 years down the road. I've been saying that for a long time, and I'm going to stick with it. And I just am excited to see him play. So he gets his start today. So anyways, I had to bring it up. Yeah, especially since John Hammonds was talking and Josh was talking about it a little bit. So, all right. So let's move on to our college football scoreboard. Again this week, guys. It started on Tuesday night. This is another. We've got a few more weeks of that where we will see Tuesday night games, and we had New Mexico State beat La Tech 27-24. Last Tuesday, and Liberty, who is still undefeated, by the way, guys, as well, beat Western Kentucky in Bowling Green, which is about 20 minutes from me down the road, 42-29. On Wednesday night, Jacksonville State beat FIU 41-16, and UTEP beat Sam Houston 37-34. Then on Thursday night this past week, Virginia Tech smashed Syracuse 38-10, which I found was kind of an odd-looking game because Virginia Tech really hasn't looked good, and Syracuse started out 4-0 and looked good, and since then they have been terrible. Georgia Southern beat Georgia State 44-27, and then on Friday night, FAU beat Charlotte 38-16. And that was the games before Saturday.
Yep.
For this week. And then on Saturday, the games that I have listed here, and let's see if this is, yes, the full list. All right, Florida State beat Wake Forest 41-16. Kansas, at the very end of the game, comeback, scores a touchdown, beats Oklahoma 38-33, makes a huge statement. This was at home for Kansas, but Oklahoma, who was undefeated and the sixth-ranked team in the country, is a huge, huge deal for a football school or basketball school like Kansas in football.
And this game was also delayed for a while due to lightning in the middle of this game. So right before halftime, I think they had to shut it down for a little while because of lightning. And that way, that game did go into the 2:30 kicks, a lot deeper into the 2:30 kicks than what you would normally see because of the lightning delay. And so a lot of people may or may not have been able to see the Oregon game, or they had to switch over to FS1 or something like that to finish out one of these games.
Daniels did not play in the game. Their backup, Jason Bean, who's been playing a lot because Daniels has been out, played in this game. So just to throw that out there as well, this was a big, big statement for Kansas. We already said Penn State kind of struggled with Indiana 33-24. UMass beat Army 21-14. Boston College beat UConn 21-14. This was a strange score to me as well. Northwestern beat Maryland 33-27. That was a big, big win for Northwestern, to be quite honest.
That is a strange score, no doubt.
Yeah. Texas A&M beat South Carolina 30-17. Now, John, I'm going to pause here on this one because last week I asked which one of these were two of the three schools, Arkansas being the other, which one of these three schools are we going to see the first change at head coach?
Right.
And A&M handles their business at home, beat South Carolina. South Carolina is 2-6. Arkansas is 2-6.
Correct.
So I'm not saying they're going to make a change yet. I'm just saying it's not looking good at both of those places.
Right.
Kansas State beat Houston 41-0, blanked them, which was, Houston had just last week was tied with Texas, late in the game, and then they get blanked by Kansas State this week. So who knows what's going to happen in college football from week to week. West Virginia beat UCF 41-28. SMU demolished Tulsa 69-10.
Nice.
Western Michigan beat Eastern Michigan 45-21. Clemson loses at NC State 24-17. I'm going to say this with the Clemson game. This was the first time in the regular season that Clemson has lost back-to-back games in the regular season since 2011.
Do you know what Dabo looks like without a generational quarterback?
Apparently not good.
Tommy Bowden.
Oh, yeah. You're actually going to throw a name to it. Okay. I got what you were saying. Yeah, I got you.
That's what Clemson and Dabo Swinney look like without a generational quarterback. And they had two of them there. So looks like Tommy Bowden, which was the predecessor to Dabo Swinney. Dabo took his job and was the interim for the remainder of the season that they fired Tommy Bowden. He had not really done well after for about 2 or 3 years, and was about to, thought he was about to be fired. The athletic director gave him, one more year, and that's when he ended up turning everything around.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so
when he first started, he wasn't doing all that great.
Right.
First couple of 2 or 3 years, and then he turned it around. And just so you guys know, I'm just telling you, this is the first time back-to-back losses in the regular season. I'm not talking about championship games and all that kind of stuff, bowl games and stuff like that, since 2011. Like, that's a long time ago, guys. Seriously. Memphis beat North Texas 45-42. Georgia handled Florida 43-20. Texas walloped BYU 35-6 with a backup quarterback, by the way.
Yep.
So we have to acknowledge Texas being up there. They played with Malik Murphy as their quarterback, first start ever in collegiate football, and handled his business and beat BYU 35-6. It was at Texas at home, but still, Oregon also won 35-6 over Utah, which was a big statement for them
At Utah.
well. At Utah, yes, a huge statement for Oregon. Pittsburgh demolished. Notre Dame demolished Pittsburgh 58-7. How did Louisville lose to Pittsburgh? Seriously.
It's a great question. Do not know how Louisville lost to Pittsburgh.
How did they lose to Pittsburgh? Like, seriously, I don't understand that one. Speaking of Louisville beat Duke 23-0. Auburn, your Auburn Tigers beat Mississippi State 27-13 yesterday.
That they did.
Minnesota beat Michigan State 27-12. Nebraska, who looks like they might be closing in on a bowl game, beat Purdue 31-14. Miami struggled with Virginia, but pulls out a field goal win in overtime, 29-26.
Amazing.
Iowa State beats Baylor 30-18. UTSA over East Carolina 41-27. App State over Southern Miss 48-38. Miami of Ohio beats Ohio 30-16. Tulane sneaks out a win at Rice 30-28. Rice has been playing really well and has a QB that maybe you guys have heard of. You know his name, right?
Yes, it's the one from Georgia.
Yeah. And they've been playing pretty well, actually, down there. So Tulane, who I think, are they still undefeated as well?
No, Tulane lost to Ole Miss early in the season.
Yeah, that's right. You're right about
So no, they are not.
Yeah. USC somehow survives at California 50-49.
Failed 2-point conversion at the end of the game.
Yeah. And they were down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, so you have to give them a little bit of credit, but they gave up 49 points to California.
Yeah, I believe Williams threw for about 369 yards or so in that game. So Caleb Williams was 23 of 40 for 369 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then I believe the team had 128 yards of rushing as well. So to go on top of that.
Offensively, they played like they do. They just give up way too many points, and California's not that great.
Yeah, they don't have a defense, and Cal's quarterback looked. It's the guy that came in because he was hurt against Auburn, or he was hurt going into the Auburn game, so he wasn't going to start the Auburn game. But he is their starter. Huh?
Was it Sam Jackson?
No, it was the other guy.
The other guy?
Yeah. Mendoza.
Okay.
And he went 25 for 39 for 292 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. And I believe Cal ran all over USC by rushing for 235 yards as a team. And Jaden Ott, who is a beast, ran for 153 of those yards. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, USC, exactly what we've been saying on our show, they're not a contender because they have no defense whatsoever. Arkansas State beat UL Monroe 34-24. Louisiana beat South Alabama 33-20. Boise State beats Wyoming 32-7 at home. Wyoming is a really good team. That's an impressive win for them. Coastal Carolina at home beats Marshall 34-6. That's an impressive score as well for them. And Washington struggled a little bit, beat Stanford 42-33. Air Force 30, Colorado State 13. Kentucky 33, Tennessee. Or I wish that was the right score.
Reverse.
I wish that was the right score. I'm sorry. Tennessee 33, Kentucky 27. I will say this: Kentucky played really well last night, except they could not stop the run. So
they were throwing the ball all over the yard.
Leary had 373 yards.
Couldn't really stop the run there,
and they could not stop the run last night. But Leary looked really good. I put that up for you there. He says Freeze has a bright future with Auburn.
Yeah, I think
and Ken, you're right. It is JT Daniels. That's the quarterback that I was talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. Troy beat Texas State 31-13. Ohio State handled Wisconsin, but they struggled for a bit in this game, 24-10. Ole Miss beat Vandy 33-7. UCLA beat Colorado 28-16. Georgia Tech beats North Carolina 46-42 last night. What's going on with North Carolina? They did this last year. They haven't shown a defense. Just when you think they have turned the corner, and they're like 6-0 or 8-0 or something, and you think they've turned the corner, they fall apart.
Yeah, the defense sat this one out. That's what happened. The Gene Chizik's defense did not show up at all and allowed Georgia Tech, a team that shouldn't be putting up this kind of yards and this kind of points against you. It did. So that was on the defense. That one's on the defense. The offense played well enough. If you look at the stats and everything like that, shows that you should win the game when you have the kind of stat line that North Carolina had. But when you go look at the stat line on Georgia Tech,
the last 2 years they look the part. They get 6-0, 8-0, whatever, and then all of a sudden they fall apart. 2 or 3 weeks in a row. They did that last year too.
Right. So they've lost now two weeks in a row, right? Because they've lost to Virginia and Georgia Tech, two teams that shouldn't beat, like they shouldn't lose to.
Yeah, they have no business losing to these teams,
right?
Whatsoever.
Exactly.
James Madison beats Old Dominion 30-27 in a close game,
and can't go to a bowl game.
Yeah,
James Madison.
Arizona State 38. Washington State 27. Oklahoma State pounds Cincinnati 45-13. Arizona at home pulls out a late victory 27-24 over Oregon State, which was a good win for them at home. Oregon State is a good team. They were, ranked number 11 last week. So Nevada beat New Mexico 34-24. Fresno State in a good game. Both of these were 6-1 teams, beat UNLV 31-24, and San Jose State blanked Hawaii 35-0. That is your full rundown of the college football scoreboard for Week 9.
Yep.
That's it. That's a full rundown for you guys. So right this minute, I am going to let a friend of mine, Howie Fresh, talk to you guys about Dubby Energy Drink.
And I just want to shout out our newest partner, Dubby Energy Drinks. Energy drink, you get the powder, you mix it up at home, but it's better than any of that coffee, any of that energy drink you get. There's no crash, no jitters, no angst. They have a patented neuro factor. That's the star of the show. They got brain food. I'm talking taurine, tyrosine, glutamine, more. They only have the best amino acids. Only the best brain benefiting vitamins. I'm talking B3, B12, vitamin C, much more. I'm also talking 150 milligrams of caffeine. So just like your energy, it gives you that kick There's no sugar, no maltodextrin, no fake colors, no dyes, no fillers, no BS. You can go to w.gg, make sure you use the code REALFRESH, 2 words, code REALFRESH. Get 10% off for your order and support the show. Or if you'd rather just copy paste the link from the description.
All right, guys, that was my friend Howie Fresh. He is got those W energy drinks. We're all busy in life and everything, so we're all sometimes needing to pick me up. So try those out, and use the code Real Fresh when you do. So, all right, let's talk about the college football landscape for a minute this week. I think a couple of weeks ago when you were on, we talked about there was probably about 16 teams that had a legitimate shot. Now we're sitting 2 weeks later from that. I think it's more like 12-ish. It really is 10.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the top 10 and then maybe a couple of teams that are just outside the top 10. As far as your teams with the legit shot to win it all. So your top 10: Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Penn State, and Oklahoma. Those all have legitimate shots. Now, here's the deal. A few of those teams are going to eliminate each other on here. So they're going to get knocked out later on within the next, few weeks. But as of right now, they all have a legitimate shot. Then when you get outside the top 10, you're looking at Ole Miss. Not really a great shot. They still
legitimately
have a mathematical shot to get in there. It's not one that's real great. If you go down, LSU's got one, and I believe so does Missouri. 13 and 14 are legitimate shots. When you get outside of that,
let me ask you about Air Force. Does Air Force have a legitimate shot to sneak in or no? They're undefeated. And we have seen teams like that sneak in at 4. I mean, if some of these teams beat each other up ahead of them,
you gotta have some 2-loss teams in the top, up there at the very top. You're gonna have to have a lot more 2-loss teams up there for them to get in. And I just don't think you're gonna see that. So
a group of 5 schools be up.
And I mean, like, look, if this were next year, then they're definitely
if this is
got
next year,
a real shot.
12. Well, one of those spots is for the group of 5, schools. So
right. So
the best team out of the group of 5 gets one of those spots. Actually,
correct.
So next year Air Force would be in great shape where they are right now for next year.
They would be. Yep.
Yeah. Now this year, there's 8-0, I believe.
They are.
I don't believe they've had a bye week. I think they're 8-0. Yeah. And they're playing in a conference that has some good teams in it. I mean, like I said, Fresno State's, 7-1, UNLV 6-2. Boise State is right there. It's got a good team. Wyoming's got a good team that has 1 or 2 losses. So, I mean, their conference is not like weak. They have 4 or 5 teams that are 6-2 or above.
Right. But again, what would they do when they start facing teams that are in the Power 5? That's what that's what everybody's going to end up having to ask themselves.
Yeah.
That's what would they do against a team that when you face a Power 5 team?
I felt like, it's our duty here, College Sportscast to, at least have a conversation about them.
Right.
Because they are having that type of season. They started way down the list. So a team like Cincinnati did it a few years back, but Cincinnati started in the top 25.
Right. And Cincinnati also got beaten, I think pretty easily, right?
Yeah.
Once they got in. Yeah.
Right. They did.
So, yep.
Yeah, they did. But I'm just, having that conversation because they are there. And in a season like this next year, they definitely would have a spot. So they're
Right.
worth talking about. That's the only school outside of, you went down to like 13 and 14 to LSU and Missouri.
Right.
To me, that's the only other school down in there that you could legitimately even have a discussion about, really.
Right. So that was the that should be about it right there. Like I said, you got, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan are all going to have to play each other, and Penn State's already lost to Ohio State. So, they're going to eliminate.
If Penn State loses to Michigan in a couple of weeks,
Then they're out. Right. But they're still, mathematically, they're still in it because you could have two teams from the Big Ten. I don't think they're going to have two teams from one conference this year. I don't think so. We'll have to take a look. But, Wisconsin and Oregon could eliminate each other. Texas and Oklahoma could eliminate, one or one will get eliminated between Texas and Oklahoma, between Washington and Oregon, between Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. Right. Right. I think if Florida State just keeps going, they're going to be in. I think Georgia, they keep going, they're in. And then I think it's the winner of the Big Ten, and I think it's the Pac-12, or Florida State's going to have to compete with the Big 12. You'll have to see if it's going to be Texas, Oklahoma, or if it's Florida State. Because that's going to be your deciding factor. Because I do think that the winner of Washington, Oregon gets in.
I'm kind of leaning that way too this year, because the Pac-12, in my book, is the second best conference, probably.
I mean, it's a very deep conference, especially.
It is, and I just don't see how you can leave them out this year.
Right.
I just don't see it. I think now, if for some reason and somehow, these next 4 or 5 weeks, the winner has 2 losses.
Right. So if Oregon loses again and then wins the conference, then you're looking at that they would have eliminated themselves, and that, Florida State, gets in, and, assuming that they win their conference, which, that's what it looks like. It looks like
the ACC right now, North Carolina in their swoon the last couple of weeks, Clemson is falling off the wagon for sure now.
Right.
You got Louisville that's still there,
but they have a black eye with Pitt. They're lost to Pitt, which is like that. That's a black eye.
Yeah, that's definitely.
But Florida State's got it. Florida State's got a great win. They beat LSU. So,
but their conference doesn't do them any favors.
No, it doesn't. But Clemson rode those coattails for a while, where they had a bad conference and still got in, and you didn't think that they played anybody. So.
I'm not saying that they won't. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, when you look at the conferences, ACC is not good.
Yeah, and it stinks for Florida State, because Florida State's you pretty certain they're a legit team. They're just playing in a bad conference.
Yeah,
so
I think they've proven with a few of the games that they have played, that they are a legit team.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it stinks for them, because my belief is that if the winner of the Washington Oregon game, if they remain, they win out and they play each other in the Pac-12 championship, I think the winner of that game gets in. I think the winner of the Big Ten gets in. Georgia, because I assume Georgia's going to be the winner of,
or Bama. Maybe.
Yeah, but I'm going with right now. I'm putting Georgia in, even if it is Bama.
Yeah.
I still think it's the winner of the SEC gets
I'm
in,
going to go with Georgia.
unless it's like a 3-loss LSU or something.
And then that leaves you a toss-up between Florida State, Texas, and Oklahoma.
Correct. Yeah, and then you have to
For the
because
other
you'll probably
spot.
have you'll probably have Texas and Oklahoma play each other, and so you'll be looking at the winner of that one getting in
versus Florida State as of right now.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So
that's basically the landscape, I believe, of the college football playoff right now. We're sitting at coming up to week 10 in college football, so we've got about a month or so before we get to the conference championship games, somewhere around there.
right, it should be the first weekend of December, like December 1st or 2nd or
And
something
we're at the
like that.
very end of October, so it might be 5 weeks until we.
It is.
to
There's
that.
5 weeks. There's 5 Fridays in November, so
Yeah.
it will be. I think November 30th is the 5th Friday. I think that's how this math works, and which would put December 1st as the conference championship weekend.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, John. We've been doing what we've been calling the good, the bad, and the ugly. So for week 9, we're gonna start and have a little bit of fun here and tell our good, the bad, and the ugly for what we think happened in week 9. So I'll start with you on the good. What do you think the good was from week 9?
Well, I mean, there's quite a few of them that you can have as the good from week 9. So one, we'll go with Georgia being able to show out without Brock Bowers and shutting down Florida and winning in a rivalry game where the crowd, the opponent is 50-50.
I
As
had
far
Josh
as
put up there. He said Josh said Georgia is 3-peating. So
yeah, well.
Yeah.
Stranger things have happened, but at the moment, right now, the good Georgia with what they did this weekend.
Okay, if you're going to go with Georgia, I'm going to have to go with Oregon. Going into Utah, a extremely tough place to play.
Elevation game.
Kyle Whittingham has been tremendous at Utah as a coach. He has led this team, before this weekend to just one loss without Cam Rising, without their starting tight end, and had won some big games at home. We thought they might struggle with UCLA. They win, and a couple of other games, and Oregon comes in. Dan Lanning brings in Oregon, and Bo Nix. John, man, this guy. I mean,
it's amazing what he looks like when he's actually coached.
I mean, he just picks them apart. And Utah has
also against. Well, actually, I would say against Pac-12 defenses, but Utah actually has a legitimate defense. So
yes, they do.
They have a legitimate defense, so that's you can't even use that argument there.
No, you cannot use that at all. Not against Utah. You can't.
No, there's a couple of defenses out there in the Pac-12. You can't use that defense. You can't use the defensive argument, but there are some of them where you can go, yeah, they just don't have a defense.
Yeah. So Ken Musk says that Utah had not lost at home since 2020, and that the Ducks win is very impressive. That's what I'm saying, guys.
That's right.
Mean, out of all the wins, to me, I think Utah not only getting the win, but going in and kind of manhandling them and beating them 35-6 at home, and Bo Nix looking like he did and kind of picking them apart. I mean, Oregon is right there to challenge Washington in the Pac-12. That's just all there is to it.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. So what do you have for your bad from week 9?
All right. The bad, I'm going to go with Vanderbilt quarterback play. Okay. Vanderbilt quarterbacks went 8 for 20, 60 yards. That's not good. That's not really going to ever win you games. That's a 3-yard average. That's 0 touchdowns, and both quarterbacks threw an interception apiece. So that is 2 turnovers as well. Cumulative QBR was 26. It's a 14 for one and a 12 for another. So they both ran for, I believe, 56 yards total between the two of them. But and the quarterback was the leading rusher at 59, Walter Taylor. So 59 yards. So combined, the quarterbacks 120 yards total, which is not good.
Yeah, that's pretty bad, I have to say.
So
Yeah.
By the way, this is Auburn's next opponent. So
Y'all playing Vandy? Boy, y'all got it bad. Y'all got a rough schedule, I'm telling you.
Oh no. We're Auburn is on a 4-game stretch. Okay, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and New Mexico State. Okay, I told you this last week. They're about to start a 4-game stretch that should make them bowl eligible and above 500 for the season.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would think so. Yeah. Yeah, I would think so.
Should.
Yeah.
I'll never know with Auburn, but yeah.
So I'm going to say this, okay? So, and I know this one's probably going to be a little bit controversial.
Go for it.
Because a couple of weeks ago, they looked like world beaters. But the past 2 weeks, Oklahoma has not looked good.
That's right.
They come off of a bye week after beating Texas and struggled mightily and snuck out a win at home against UCF.
That's right. Gus almost pulled off the one signature win.
And then they go on the road and give up 38 points to Kansas after giving up 29 at home to UCF.
Right.
So I'm going to say the bad is Oklahoma's defense all of a sudden.
Yeah, because I mean, like last year, that was the bad. That was their defense was horrible. That's
why I'm bringing this up, because last year Oklahoma had a losing season and went 6-7, and the reason why they did that is their defense was horrible. They had a stretch where they were giving up like 50 points a game, and on an average, and Oklahoma a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago when they beat Texas, we're all thinking, okay, Oklahoma has arrived. Venables has figured it all out. And, they are going to be able to be there at the end. But I'm saying hold up just a minute, because their defense is looking a whole lot more like it did last year all of a sudden. Not quite as bad. I'm not going to sit here and act like that they are as bad, but they're getting closer to looking like that than they are the first 6 games this year.
Yep.
So if you're a Sooners fan, you're hoping that they figure out this Oklahoma defense and get back to the way they were playing the first half of this year. Yep. All right. So let's move on to the ugly. It's always fun to talk about our ugly for week 9.
We could go in several different directions, but and honestly, we're going to go with about 3 or 4 different teams' defenses here, or the lack thereof. North Carolina, USC. I mean, you could keep going on. I mean, of course, we knew USC's defense wasn't there, to begin with. North Carolina's defense not showing up at all the last few games. I mean, it's just it's those defenses right there. That is the ugly for for me this week is seeing North Carolina defense, give up what they gave up. And I mean, if you go look at it, I believe it was, here we go. So Haynes King was 23 of 30 for 287 yards, 4 touchdowns, and one.
King.
Haynes King. Yes, you heard it correctly. That is the same Haynes King that started
hilarious.
at Texas A&M is throwing up numbers over here at Georgia Tech. Haynes King, 23 of 30 for 287 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 INT. Yes.
Atrocious.
And not only did they throw the ball for 287 yards, but they ran the ball for 348 yards against North Carolina. Okay. So they gave up 287 yards in the air, North Carolina's defense. They gave up 348 on the ground. That's bad.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I have to say, yeah, and that's pretty ugly.
That is ugly. You don't win. You don't win too many games. When you give up that. I mean, and they had a shot to win. That's the thing, is they had a shot to win, but they.
All right, guys. So I guess what I'm going to go with here is I'm specifically going to talk about Clemson's offense.
I was debating whether to even involve Clemson in this one, but
I'm going to talk about Clemson's offense. And the reason why I'm going to talk about their offense is in the offseason, they went out and they brought in Garrett Riley from TCU. And there was all this talk that, what a big hire it was going to be. That they were going to infuse some air raid into their offense. And they had Klubnik, a 5-star guy, and they were going to light up the scoreboard. And we're setting 9 weeks in, and they are 4-4. And I'm not even sure that I haven't looked exactly, but I do not think they're averaging more than like 17 or 18 points a game.
I don't think so. I don't think they've scored a whole lot, in total.
They had 17 this past week against North Carolina State. Now, I will say this. North Carolina State does have a solid defense. They're not a great offensive team, but they do have a solid defense. However, 8 weeks in, Dabo Swinney has basically put a hold on Garrett Riley's offense, and he is basically running very similar to the same offense that he's run since about that 2011 mark that I was talking about earlier. And I just don't understand the concept of bringing in a guy with air raid concepts who is coming off a national championship game with TCU with his offense, and bringing that guy in and not giving him the green light to run his offense.
Right. So here's the deal here. So Clemson, and you've got to take 2 of these games with a grain of salt, okay? Because they're
early that were
right. Yeah. Yes. So first game against Duke, 7 points. Second game against Charleston Southern, 66 points. This is where you have to take it with a grain of salt. FAU in the third game, 48 points.
Yeah.
All right. Against Florida State in game 4, 24 points. Against Syracuse, 31. At least one of those was a defensive touchdown. So
yeah,
I'm pretty certain of that, because I think if not a defensive touchdown, a defensive setup, one that where an interception took you to like the 2-yard line. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think they actually may have had one defensive touchdown and one defensive setup touchdown. So that one, you can't even think that was a, the 31's not a real number right there. 17 versus Wake Forest. 28
win.
versus 20 versus Miami, and then 17 versus NC State.
Right. So if you take out the, FCS team that they played, if you take that one out, I mean, honestly, they are struggling mightily on the offensive side of the ball. And
Correct.
my thing is this, like I said, I just don't understand bringing in Garrett Riley and not flourishing and letting him run his concepts and do the things. I just don't quite understand it. And now that they are sitting at 4-4 and their worst season since 2010, it's pretty ugly in Clemson, South Carolina, right now. So that's my ugly. And like the last couple of weeks, I really can't believe that they have done what I mean. Them and the ACC, between them and North Carolina, they're both of them the last 2 weeks have been pretty darn ugly.
Yeah. It's like I said, the ACC is kind of cannibalizing itself, and it's not in a good way. So
all right. So quickly, I'm going to let Howie Fresh talk one more time here.
Hey, I am Hal Fresh here to tell you about the Real Fresh channel. That's right, youtube.com/the Real Fresh channel. We are a network aiming to bringing you various content each and every day, different types of podcasts, different type of content. Anything from college SportsCast and fresh takes for some sports. We also got You Want to Do What? We got the Wrestling Corner. We got live stream. Just go over to youtube.com/the Real Fresh channel and hit us up today. Thank you for checking it out. Appreciate your time.
right on.
All right, guys. That was Howie Fresh. Check out his channel. We are on there on Sunday nights, and he has lots of other stuff to check out throughout the week, each and every night. So check that out. We're going to do a quick look ahead for, it's week 10, not week 9.
Correct.
I didn't put that up right. Sorry, guys. My brain wasn't adding 1 to 9. So it's really week 10 look ahead, not week 9.
Yep.
So we have a top 25 matchup of Kansas State goes to Texas. That should be a pretty good game. Kansas State has had a couple of really good weeks the last couple of weeks. So it'll be a good test for them to see going up against Texas. I don't know if Ewers will be back next week or not yet, but we'll find out later in the week. Texas A&M goes to Ole Miss, which should be a good game. A game that you would think would be a good game is Notre Dame goes to Clemson. But, we're just talking about Clemson, so I'm not real sure, if that's going to be a good one to watch or not.
Probably not. I'm going to go with it's not going to be a good one.
Yeah, right. A top 15 matchup, Missouri goes to Georgia this coming week, and that's going to be a really, really big game for the SEC East. The winner of that game is going to have the upper hand right now, to be honest.
Yes. This right here is the battle for number 1 in the SEC East. But I mean,
Tennessee still has a role in that as well.
They do, but yeah.
So we'll see exactly what happens, but they still have an outside role in that. Tennessee does, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they can still. I think they're more of a team that could decide it by beating or losing to a team rather than being the team that gets in.
Right.
On the East, I think they're more of a, they will have a role as a deciding factor, but they themselves will not factor into the decision.
Right.
So, yes.
To continue the look ahead here, we've got Oklahoma travels to Oklahoma State.
Oh, Bedlam.
Yep. This is going to be
the last one.
The last one. Yeah. in this series for the foreseeable future as well. Oklahoma State is 6-2. Oklahoma 7-1. I mean, this should be a really, really big game coming up. Kansas goes to Iowa State in the Big 12. Kansas 6-2. Iowa State surprisingly is 5-3. They have looked and played a lot better than I think a lot of people give them credit for. Washington travels to USC. Washington the last couple of weeks has not looked like themselves, so we'll see what happens when they go to USC this week. Hopefully they will get back on track. LSU and Alabama is going to be the huge game in the SEC West. The winner of this game as well has the inside track in the SEC West as well.
But with the loss for LSU, pretty much eliminates them from any sort of playoff contention at that point.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Bama is still.
They've only got one loss in the SEC West.
They've only got one loss, and it is not to an SEC team yet. They lost to Texas.
No.
They have one loss.
They have two losses.
Bama only has one loss. They lost to Texas.
No, I'm saying LSU.
Yeah, LSU has two losses, and yes, they lost one team. They've lost one game in the SEC and one game outside of the SEC. Yes.
Right. So if they were to pick off Alabama,
then they have the inside track.
They would have the inside track.
Correct.
Yeah. So there's two games in the SEC this week, one in the East and one in the West, that are really big games on who's going to be number one in the East and West.
Correct.
This coming weekend. That is some of the top 25 games. If you want to look through and see if there's a few other games in there that interest you, that's not
this is more of just a game that would be interesting to watch. If you're an SEC fan, Kentucky and Mississippi State generally have good games between the two of them. I know that they're both on two different really trajectories, or at least you would think that. I mean, Kentucky may be on a downslide, and Mississippi State definitely is on a downslide, but Kentucky's a little bit higher up on the hill than Mississippi State.
Right.
But that game's usually pretty decent. Washington
Kentucky
and USC
does not play well in Starkville, by the way, most of the time.
Right. So Washington at USC. This right here, while we all believe that the USC defense is going to be the reason why they lose this game, the USC offense could still be a factor as to a way that they could win this game. So we need to keep our eye on that one, as that will, again, play a factor into the Pac-12 and if they still have a playoff chance. Another one, which I think would be a sneaky good game, is Jacksonville State at South Carolina. As what we were talking about early in the season, trying to see what Furman would do at South Carolina, Furman being an SEC team, an FCS team, and that ended up being a blowout South Carolina win.
Yeah. But now South Carolina is lost like 4 or 5 in a row.
Right. And they're losing players left and right too. So they don't have a whole lot of players. Their offensive line is weak. Jacksonville State's coming in with 1 or 2 losses on the season. They were predicted to only have 1 win on the season because they have been coming up from the FCS ranks to the FBS ranks. And I think that they could, at least compete with South Carolina, especially with South Carolina kind of being on that downward spiral. If they let up with this game, Jacksonville State could put a W up there.
I'm gonna tell you right now, that might be a nail in the coffin right there. I don't know.
I'm throwing that one out there because I think that one could be a good one to pay attention to. Just You may
I'm
not
just
have to
saying.
sit there and watch it, but I would be scoreboard. I'd be
Yeah,
scoreboard
that's-
watching, definitely.
That's one that you that could be a nail in the coffin right there. I'm not
Right.
sure.
Another one to look at 11. So that particular game, that South Carolina game's also at 11. But Texas A&M Ole Miss, because Texas A&M having like what looked like a pretty good complete game, other than like the first quarter or the first drive where South Carolina sacked their quarterback 3
That's
times.
what I was saying about nail in the coffin, Ken
Yeah.
Musk on the Shane Beamer loses job after Jacksonville State loss. Could
Yeah.
be.
But another one to look at would be Ole Miss and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
That one could be a good game. That one's going to be in Oxford.
That's a sneaky good game. I mean,
yeah.
Texas A&M still has a good team. I mean, they're not great, but they have a good team, and for sure they could challenge Ole Miss in
They have
Oxford.
a really good defense, and again, Ole Miss has a good offense, and that's what you'll be able to. It's kind of one of those, good on goods right there on the field. So that would be something to pay attention to. And I think that would be a sneaky good game to watch at 11 a.m. So 11 a.m. you've got Texas A&M, Ole Miss, you've got South Carolina and Jacksonville State, and then later on in the evening, I think you've got the Washington USC game. I think those are going to be the games to kind of pay attention to that aren't top 25 matchups.
Right. All right, guys. We appreciate you being with us today. That's going to wrap things up. But before we go, I do want to talk about our affiliation that we have with Home Field. They are a premium licensed collegiate vintage apparel company, and you can check them out. That shirt that John is wearing is one of their Auburn shirts. And they have over 150 teams. I was looking at it. I think it's more around the 180 team mark right now when I was looking at it, but they have at least over 150 teams available. Even teams like Furman and stuff that are FCS. And, so there's, if your team is not one of the top teams in the country and you're a fan of whoever, check them out, look it up. They have cool retro logos and mascots and designs and throwback teams, for each and every school. So it's a really cool vintage and retro stuff to look at. They have hats, they have T-shirts, they have hoodies, they have sweatpants. They have a lot of different stuff to check out. And each team, I think Auburn has 36 pieces. I think I've seen Kentucky has like 28 or 29, I think. So your team could have more or less. I haven't looked at all 175 teams.
I've got about 5 or 6 of those shirts and a hoodie from Auburn. So it's really awesome. I've started to venture out and start looking at some of the other schools because I do like some of the other logos and designs. I think Cal Irvine is one that I'd looked at, like the Anteaters. I'd looked into, Tulane stuff with the angry wave.
They've got some of those old school mascots and retro logos and stuff. And it's just really cool.
That's right.
And we're excited to have them along with us here at College SportsCast, because that's what we do is we cover college sports teams all around the country. And to be able to offer that to you guys is a big deal for us here at College SportsCast. And like I said, we're excited about being able to offer that to you guys. So what you can do is this. You can use our code CSCast for a 15% discount if you're a first-time buyer with Homefield. Go to homefieldapparel.com, and at checkout, you can use CSCast for 15% off. If you're not a first-time buyer, you can follow me or John, probably either one of us. Follow us on Twitter and we post links with our code, and you can also order through those links with our code behind them from our Twitter as well. So you can do either one. So we're excited about that. I wanted to give a little talk about. I know John. I noticed it when we first started. John had the shirt on. So
Yep.
yeah,
You'll see one from every show. I'll have probably something, because I can cover. If we did 2 weeks in a row, I could have a different shirt on each time, and still be.
I'm gonna have one coming. John's actually gonna have another one coming. So
basketball one. So it'll be basketball. I've got a couple basketball ones already, and this will be a basketball one. And the really cool thing about Home Field too is that they research all those retro logos, and they even have the story behind some of those logos. Like the one that I got from that I'm getting next is the Peacock shirt, and that has a really cool, interesting story that Auburn embraced the Peacock logo, or the Peacock as a mascot. So, think about it, Auburn and however many mascots you already have in there embraced another one. I mean,
as an outsider,
embraced another one.
Who knew that Auburn had a peacock as a mascot? I had no idea.
Embraced it with the basketball team.
Outsider, I had no idea.
Embraced it with the basketball team in the 2021 season, and the fan base, it took off with the Twitter fan base, and then so much so that the official account for Auburn basketball was using it, and then Home Field picked up on it and licensed out the shirt, and it's a really cool shirt. So I'll have it. It's a blue with the peacock right there on it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, we still got to get them quite ordered. They haven't looked at my email because it's the weekend. So it'll be a little bit before we get them, but we do have some shirts coming from Home Field, and we're excited about that. Excited about having them with us here at College SportsCast. It's to have those teams and everything, and to do the retro and vintage. That's kind of what's hot right now. It's what everybody likes, and it's cool to have that retro and those logos and mascots and designs and throwback teams. And by throwback teams, I mean championship teams from the 50s or the 60s or whatever. So you can wear stuff that's brand new right now, that's throwback, vintage, retro, and they're just cool designs. So check them out. All right, guys. So that's going to wrap up our show. Our next show is going to be Halloween night. Might do some kind of Halloween special here. I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be Halloween night, October 31st, Tuesday night, 8:00. We'll come in and do the Big Fuss show for week 10 and have a little bit of fun. I know one of my topics to look forward to is I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to throw it out there. After one specific replay that did not get overturned last night in the Tennessee-Kentucky game, I'm going to ask the specific question: is there any need for replay in college football anymore? Because I just don't see the need for it. I
mean, did you see the one from Texas A&M?
I did not, but I tell you the one from Tennessee, Kentucky, the dude was 3-4 feet out of bounds by the time he actually handled the ball.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't even close.
Right. Yeah. And then
the announcers are like, well, you got to have, undisputable evidence. What more do you need? If you can't have that as undisputable evidence, then why do we even have replay? I don't understand.
Right. And like I said, from the Texas A&M, it's the tight end that had caught a ball, was able to toe tap and get the back foot, get the toe drag the toe across, caught the ball, came down with the ball, had possession of the ball all the way through, and they went and looked at it, and then just said play stands and said that he was out of bounds.
Before we do this topic on Tuesday night, I may try to look up that call. You said it was Texas A&M?
Texas A&M and South Carolina. The Texas
South
A&M
Carolina?
tight end. Texas A&M tight end caught a pass late in the game that should have been a touchdown. They ultimately got a field goal out of that possession. South Carolina, I think, went down and scored a touchdown to get within one score. And then Texas A&M was able to put it away after that. But it made the game very interesting when they didn't score the touchdown right there.
Ken says, I agree. How many plays actually get overturned? Almost none. I mean, I don't understand the whole concept of undisputable evidence to overturn. I'm telling you, if you watched the Kentucky-Tennessee game last night, that is, you can't have more evidence than what you can actually see right there.
Right.
There's no reason to even have replay in the game if you can't overturn something with that kind of evidence.
Correct.
That's where I'm going to leave it for now, but I am going to look at it. I am going to have a hot topic on Tuesday night about this subject. I just wanted to give you a little precursor to it. So, but for sure, that's going to be one of the topics on Tuesday night.
Right.
Yeah. Ken Musk says eliminate replay and reinstate the clock. Great idea, Ken. Great idea. Absolutely great idea. 100%. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up our show here, College Sportscast, for the weekend wrap-up show, Week 9. We appreciate you being with us, and we will see you on Tuesday night. Have a good one, guys.